Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast off-season preview series where Bryce Simon and I dive deep into every NBA team's forthcoming offseason and all of the important decisions that those front offices have to make. Today, we are going to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves, but first, we got to shout out the listeners of the show. We just passed 40,000 subscribers earlier this week on the channel. We thank you guys immensely for rocking with us. Continue to hit that subscribe button. Continue to hit the like button on all these videos. It really helps get the channel into the algorithm. Thank you all so much. But you got to keep working. We got to keep working on building this thing. Bryce, let's talk about Minnesota. The Timberwolves have an incredibly important offseason, I would argue, like a truly momentous offseason, because they have made the conference finals each of the last 2 years, but last year it was with Karl Anthony Towns. This year it was with Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. Julius Randle has a player option, which early in the season, it didn't look like he would actually exercise, and it looked like it might be a weight around the Minnesota offseason. Instead, it looks like he might exercise it and opt out, and the team will have to make a decision on a long-term contract. Additionally, Naz Reid, he has a player option this summer as well. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a free agent. Three guys that I would argue have been in their top 6 to 7 players over the course of the last, year in the case of Randall, 2 years in case of the other guys. I'm truly interested to figure out where this offseason goes. I actually don't have an answer for how they go about this, but we're going to kind of talk through it and try and figure out where their priorities are, because if they choose to keep all three, this is a second apron team and they lose a lot of flexibility. If they decide to remove one, is there too much of a diminishing return? I'm truly interested to see where you sit on this.
Yeah, there's also, we've talked about this in some other breakdowns, an ownership situation in Minnesota as well, right? In terms of what does that ownership group want to do with the team. And so it's just a fascinating situation. I think what makes this one really unique is Julius and Naz playing similar positions, right? Like obviously different roles in terms of Julius starts and Naz comes off the bench, and yes, you can play them together, but it's like, okay, you have two guys that need these new contracts. I've kind of worked like, I keep thinking Nas probably going to be the odd man out just based on kind of the roster. And, I know, again, him and Dillingham aren't like 1-to-1, but you traded a lot of draft capital to play Rob Dillingham. Terrence Shannon Jr. played a little bit in the playoffs. Jalen Clark gave them a little bit at the end of the regular season. I just wonder if Na ends up being the guy that they feel like they can go ahead and not pay. But if they don't pay or keep one of these of Julius Randle and Naz Reid, this team's not quite as interesting going into next year, right? And it's like it's really fascinating because of that and what each of these guys could demand and ultimately get.
Totally agree with you. If you had to prioritize them 1, 2, 3 in terms of the guys that you think they need to keep versus the guys that you think are less important to keep, 1 through 3. Who would you rank 1 and 2?
I think it's the two big, Sam, because of what I outlined. And it's not because I don't like Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I actually love Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think he's really, really good. I just think if I look at their roster right now, I feel like there's more options for them to play kind of in the backcourt / wing than if they let one of either Naz Reid or Julius Randle walk. And then what happens to that rotation, which I think that's a huge part of their success, is having that three-headed monster of Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, and Naz Reid in the front court, and the versatility and variety that gives you.
So I agree with you for what it's worth. I think the two bigs are slightly more important than Nickeil. On some level, I've been trying to figure out, is there any way that this summer that the Wolves look at it as a chance to reset a little bit around Anthony Edwards in terms of the long-term flexibility and being able to figure out exactly what works for him long term, reset the books just like slightly. But I kind of don't know if you can do that coming off of 2 straight conference finals berths where Anthony Edwards looks like a real dude in the playoffs. Obviously he struggled against Oklahoma City, but like it feels like a tricky situation. And it almost comes down to me, like, what do all of these guys cost? So, and it's important to note where they are in terms of the aprons, right? So they are fifth right now for 8 guys, right? For Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Dante, Jaden McDaniels, Rudy Gobert, Rob Dillingham, Terrence Shannon, Jalen Clark. So not including Randall, Reed, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Garza, Miller, Minot, or Ingles. They're about $55 million from the first apron. And then that means they're about $67 million or so from the second apron. And they're $48 million from the luxury tax. I don't really, if they want to retain both Randall and Reed, I think they're definitely going into the first apron to do so. If they want to retain all 3, I think that they're probably going into the second apron while doing so. But if we assume that to keep Nickeil, it's probably like between 12 and 15, right? Because we think he'll get pretty close to a full mid-level from somebody, right?
I think it'd be close. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe somebody like decides to not pay him in order to give like a second round pick slightly more. So like they give him 12 as a starting point, and it would be like a 450 for Nickeil Alexander-Walker as opposed to a 460, 65, whatever it is.
Yeah. I don't think Minnesota's keeping him for 10 AAV. Like I don't think they're giving him 3 for 30 or 4 for 40 or something like that and keeping him. I think that would get bested on the market.
I would agree with you. Randall, that's the easiest number to me. Like Nickeil Alexander-Walker is by far the easiest number to figure out. It's just like either the mid-level or if the Timberwolves want to like give him a slight premium to lock him in, like slightly more than the mid-level, right? Randall, I have no idea what that number is. Just like being completely genuine. He was great for the second round in the playoffs. I would argue he was pretty good in the first round as well. Third round was bad, like mostly bad, I would say. First half of the season was not great. Second half of the season was incredible. He was fantastic. I don't know, like 395, 300, like a slight raise on this number given where the cap is going.
So that's what I was wondering. Like he played at just under 31 million this year. And it's like, would he take that? Because I don't know what the market is going to be. We talk about this all the time in terms of the teams that are out there to make that happen. And so it's like, I don't know. If you could keep Julius high 20s, low 30s, I feel like that's not bad. Like at the end of the day, Sam, he is the second option on your team offensively. Like that's an important role. I think the only way you don't give him that, assuming he would take it. Now, obviously there's a number where you're just like, no, we're not paying you $40 million a year. We're not doing that. But the only way you don't even go to 30 for me, I think, is if you think Nas can just do everything Julius is doing, right? And it's like, hey, we can pay Nas 20, whatever that number is. I know we'll talk about it. And then we'll find the replacement or have the replacement if it's Leonard Miller or Josh Minot or, whatever it is, to replace the backup role. Because that's what's important in this equation. We've talked about this with the Nuggets. KCP leaving the Nuggets wasn't about who was going to replace KCP. It was about who was going to replace Christian Brown role in the second unit. It's the same thing here. It's not necessarily about who replaces Julius. That's Nas. It's who replaces Nas in the second unit if this scenario would play out where you let Julius walk and then say, hey, Nas, you're our starting 4-man. And I can see that argument, Sam, but then I want to know the answer to who's the third guy then with him and Rudy.
I mean, the funniest thing is that Tim Connolly got up out of there in Denver before he had to make these hard decisions. And now he has to make them in Minnesota, obviously. So with not let's lay out all of the three projection contracts. So with Randall, Nikhil, we know that the number is fairly easy. It's somewhere in the 12 to 15 range. With Randall, I just don't know who's going to pay him is my main issue.
Yeah.
This summer, it feels somewhat difficult to figure out who is actually going to be the team that is oh no, we'll do a sign and trade to go get Julius Randle at $40 million a year. Right. If I'm looking at this from Randall's perspective and CAA and the guys that represent him and have represented him quite well, I would argue, throughout the course of his career, he's made $165 million almost throughout the course of his career. I am looking at this as okay, this is a chance to get him some security here. Given that he's entering his age 31 season, can we get him 3 years instead of just being on a 1-year deal and he has to prove it again? Can we get him 300, 110 maybe? I think that once you start getting into 110, that starts to get up to 36 average annual value. And that's where it starts to get a little bit trickier with Randall.
Yep.
But I think right in that ballpark feels like it's right to me. 395 to 3105 feels reasonable.
Yeah, I feel like if you told me he signed 3 for 90, I would love that from Minnesota's perspective. If I'm Julius, if I'm just from perspective of I got 100 million, I could see them going hey, get us to 3 for 100, or something that. I just want to say real quick, I don't want to move back to big picture on us, Sam, but we talked about this with the Knicks on the live the other night as well. This is a team, as you mentioned, that has gone to back-to-back Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
Is running it back the worst thing and just continuing to give yourself chances, right? I think the only way your idea was interesting of rebuilding around Ant, do we maybe kind of start to wipe our books clean and maybe not, quote unquote, take a year off or something? I think you only do that if you truly believe, if you look in the mirror and say, I've seen it for 2 years, we're not good enough. This team is not going to cut it. But the other thing is this was a completely different team, right? They weren't even the same teams the last 2 years. So I could understand them. We gave the Knicks this out whenever we said Karl Anthony Towns didn't show up until when? Well, Julius Randle and Dante didn't show up until the same time in Minnesota.
Totally.
And so I could understand.
And it took Julius a minute to figure it out in Minnesota. And obviously he got hurt for a second there too, but he was not great for the first part of the season. I would argue he was very good for the second part of the season.
I was going to say, I don't want to speak for you. I felt like this was it was going to be okay whenever that trade happened. I love Dante. Yeah. Julius will figure it out. We talked about how he still has gravity at the 3-point line just because of the type of player he is. And it did not look good, to your point, early on. To the point where I was man, maybe you just bring Julius off the bench, let Nas start and let Julius run. And they figured it out. And so you could talk yourself into Anthony Edwards taking another small leap and Julius being there for another year, figuring things out a little bit better. I would understand why they would just want to keep this together and give him 3 more years of, hey, and I think that contract. So if you gave him 3, that would match up with Ant. Rudy's would come off the books at that time. It'd also match up with Jaden McDaniels. So 3 years all of a sudden looks like a real interesting years.
Window.
Yeah, to me, where it's okay, this isn't working 2 years into that, but we're right there on the brink of getting off and we can reset around Anthony Edwards who would be going, he's still 27 at that time, Sam.
Yeah. So Julius Randle, over the last, 21 games after he came back from injury, averaged 18 on 52, 40, 79. And then in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, Julius Randle averaged 24, 6 and 6, shooting 51, 35-89 and got to the line 5 times a game. Like, Randall was really great for the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. And then obviously it didn't go super well against Oklahoma City, but like, he had 3 games against Oklahoma City where he had 28, 24, and 24. Like, one of those games was game 5, where honestly, like, I didn't love his effort in the first quarter, but still, like, he was not, like, it wasn't like he was just like abjectly terrible in that series. It was that he was very inconsistent in that series, and the bad games were really bad. And that's ultimately like the conundrum with Julius on some level. Like, the bad games where like he just looks like a bit disengaged defensively and the shot isn't falling, they feel really bad. Like, they feel like somebody that like kind of hurts you out there. But the good games are, oh my God, like, this is a real second option on a great team. In Minnesota this year was an awesome basketball team. So it's the roller coaster that like you have to kind of figure out a little bit with him. And speaking of roller coaster, by the way, Naz Reid was a roller coaster this year. Like, it was just inconsistent from night to night. He was obviously fantastic last season when what did he win? 6th man of the year. He finished 2nd and 6th man of the year. He won it. Yeah. The numbers, raw counting numbers, look better. He slightly increased his points, slightly increased his rebounding, almost doubled his assist rate. It just didn't feel like that from night to night to me. Like, there were games where he was unstoppable, and there were games where he, again, like, it just didn't feel like he was helping the team all the time. Like, if you look at, and the bigger thing for me with that is that if you look at that last like 20 game stretch after Randall came back, I didn't think Naz played his best. He averaged 12 points on 44, 33, 59, and averaged 6 points and 3 assists, or 6 rebounds and 3 assists. If you look at it before that stretch, it was just better to me. If you look at the prior 58 games, he was averaging 15, 6, and 2, shooting 48, 40, 82. And look, like, I don't know how you felt about his playoffs, but I thought they were really up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a situation where like these 2 guys are a little bit duplicative of one another, like too duplicative of one another? And because you can't really play them together in like a small lineup, that it might be worth trying to explore the market on one of them potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume Naz would be a very, like, don't you think sign and trade, like, he would be a great sign and trade? Like, a lot of teams would be in on that, right? Don't you think? I know sign and trades can be difficult to construct, and yeah, they can be tough. But it seems like this is the name to me where it's like, oh, well, he's not going to go anywhere because nobody has cap space, and he's better than the non-tax MLE, right? Like, he's not going to sign the non-tax MLE. I wouldn't think. I would assume he gets better than that. So because he's a $20 million a year guy, or whatever the number is, that's higher than the non-tax MLE, to me, then it very much becomes okay, who wants to sign and trade for him? Like, that, he seems like the name that really is going to fit into that box. And I also wonder with Naz, like, do you go, I'm good to start. Like, I'm ready to start. I'm good enough in this league to be a starter. And if you're going to sign Julius to 3 more years and Rudy's on the books for 2-3 more years, and like you said, maybe me and Julius sharing the floor together isn't always the best situation, I'm going to go somewhere else where I fit in with the center and whatever, and I'm going to get to start and play 30 minutes a night.
And if I'm Naz as well, I'm 25 years old. I probably do want a 4-year deal.
Yeah.
Like, I probably want to lock that money in. So this is his chance to like, I know he's made money already. Like, he signed that deal where he's making like, $15 million a year right now. I think it was like a 345 basically, with what was it? Like a player option on the end. So he's made like 30 million already, but this is his chance to like cash in and get like 100 potentially. What does his deal look like to you? I don't think it's quite 100 is what I would say.
On 4 years?
Yeah.
I mean, if I could get Nas at 4 for 80, especially if I was a team that was going to start him, I would take that to the bank really fast, I think.
But would you do 400? Like if you're the Pistons, right? Like the Pistons need somebody like this who can space the court around Cade, who can provide like a little bit more size at the 4, might be able to slide him down to the 5 at times. Like, would you be fine with a 400 for Nas Reed?
In a vacuum, because since I know like all of the ins and outs of the Pistons, like in a super in-depth way, I understand what signing him to 400 means for other players. But in a vacuum, like, yeah, I don't think I would be mad. That would be the top end. I would start to get nervous.
Yeah. Like that. But so every team now in this new collective bargaining agreement has gives and takes on those things, right? Where, okay, if we're the San Antonio Spurs and we're giving Nas Reed 400 and we're giving De'Aaron Fox a big extension this summer, like it, okay, what do we do with Jeremy Sohan then?
Yeah.
So do we have enough money to keep Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell at that point? Like obviously we would have Phil and Harper and, Victor Wembanyama, assuming they take Harper, but like Nas Reed is a guy that like makes sense for them on some level to me, right?
Yes. And I want to be clear here. I'm only even considering that if he's going to a team that's going to start, right? Like, I don't think I would give him, I don't think he's getting $100 million to come off the bench. Like what did Malik get? Because like, I don't look at Malik's contract as a bad contract.
You're gonna have to give me a second name, last name.
Malik Monk. He got 4 for 78. I was just like, I know they're very different players, right? But it's the same role essentially in terms of come off the bench and be one of the best at it in the NBA. His was 4 for 78. So judging for, you're probably right, Sam. Like
490.
Yeah.
485, 490 with the cap inflation.
You're probably right. Unless you just like see him, unless you see the jump as our starting 4-man, he's going to come average 20 a game, 18 a game, starting and playing 32 to 35 minutes. Then I could see a team giving him a bigger number. But based off what we've seen, the role he's been in, I think you're probably right. Like it's closer to your number than the number I was thinking. So
yeah, and I like Nas Reed a lot. It just in this new cap environment, like I think teams are going to get a little bit circumspect in terms of who they are giving out massive deals to. So we said Randall at like 33. We said Nas Reed, let's say at like 22. That gets them like right to the first apron with 10 guys, right? If they want to keep Alexander Walker, they're over the second apron now. I think so. Here was my kind of case here on the other side of it, which is like, hey, let's see if we can get some assets, sign and trade this thing, and like set things up for the future. If you think that like San Antonio is going out to get Giannis or something, which we don't know, right? But if you think that's the case, and you think Oklahoma City just kicked the shit out of you, and you're not that close to Oklahoma City, and you need to retool in order to do so. And get close to them and like figure it out, right? This is really your last chance summer to be like, okay, let's make some moves. Let's adjust on the fly here. Let's change some things up before Anthony Edwards like ends his second contract and could hit unrestricted free agency and thus start like pushing things if he wanted to. And to be clear, we have gotten no indication from Anthony Edwards that he's anything but happy to be in Minnesota. And I would imagine that the way this goes is that the team gives him a supermax as soon as they can give him a supermax, right? And that is going to really allow him to cash in a significant way, right? The other thing though with Ant is that because he didn't do a player option, he has just a 5-year straight max. And he is on a supermax. He's on a Rose Rule extension. I'm sorry. That wouldn't kick in until 2029-30. So like even next summer, right? I don't know how I mean, I guess it would. It would just make sense for him to lock in that money, right? It would just make sense for him to lock in Supermax if he can next summer, because that's what he'd be getting anyway, because it would be at 35. So yeah. But if he's at 35 going forward into 2029-30, are you just kind of looking at it as, okay, Gobert is done in 2027-28, Jaden, he's done in 28-29, Randall, we'd be done, somewhere in the ballpark of 2027-28, Naz Reid, we would be keeping long term. And that's like just our core to build around at that point. The other case here is, okay, so maybe we, use Anthony Edwards. We have Jaden McDaniels long term. We do keep Rudy. That's your core three. That's your defensive backbone. And you have Ant, right? Can we go find a lead guard like with real value? Can we go find maybe a big that makes a little bit more sense than one of these guys, right? As opposed to having both of them. And does it allow us to keep Nickeil Alexander-Walker at that point? Or is there a way for us to do like two guys for Naz Reid, for like a sign and trade situation? But again, like the sign and trade is going to get really hard for them with Naz unless they go under the cap. Or not under the cap, I'm sorry, under the first apron.
Yeah.
So I don't even know how likely it is that they can keep Nickeil, keep Julius, and then do like a sign and trade with Naz Reid, unless it's for, younger guys that you're just bringing in that you really like.
Yeah.
And then like base year compensation stuff gets complicated too. I'm sorry, but continue.
No, I was just gonna say, like, that's someone threw a sign and trade at me today, and I'll be like, I told the person, I was like, honestly, like this is the part of the cap situation. Like I'm still like, I still struggle with all of that in terms of like outgoing, incoming, half of the number, but that team gets the full number and all of that. And then the apron stuff makes it even more complicated because some teams can and some teams can't. It's just. Okay, can I ask you this? Let me ask you this real quick, because I think this is important context as well. Is there a world where Jaden McDaniels can take another step forward offensively? Or is there a world where Rob Dillingham is this like lightning bug offensive scorer? Or somebody else on the roster that I'm not, maybe giving enough credit to even throw out their name? Because I think that is important. Like if you think Jaden can get to 18 points a game, all of a sudden that changes this equation, right? Because my issue right now is like they need this scoring, right? This was number 2, number 3 scorers in the regular season, Sam. The two guys we've been spending all of this time on. It was number 2 and number 4 scorers in the playoffs. Jaden actually did score more than Naz in the playoffs, but not in the regular season. So like, to me, that's where it comes down to is, does Jaden have a real jump? Did the playoffs make you believe that if you're Minnesota? Does Rob come in and just find a way to score 14 to 15 points a game, even with some of the concerns defensively? If one of those guys is on the roster, maybe this is a little bit easier to let one of them walk, even though it's not position for position.
So my concern on Jaden is that I love that he took advantage of the fact that teams kind of left him as the guy that wasn't being guarded. And honestly, like it's a jump for him to be able to do that consistently in the playoffs. Like I think he deserves a ton of credit for being able to take advantage of the way defenses played him.
It's a great point.
But I do think that's a different conversation than can he go out and get his own offense in the way that you would need him to do so.
It's a great point. Yep.
So
his matchups change drastically if you take Julius and Naz off this team, right? Like the defensive, where he's at on the scouting report and who he's being defended by is completely different.
Right. So look, he's entering his 6th year. He's still like only going to be 25 next year. Like he's quite young. The answer is maybe, but like I do worry about these guys that have like a higher center of gravity being able to like consistently foray into the lane and be able to get like easy buckets against high level on ball defense, right? It feels hard for those guys a lot of the time. Some guys do it, like, I think Chet's going to do it like fairly effectively, but like Chet is just a lot more skilled than Jaden McDaniels is with the ball, right? So I think there's a chance he could be like instead of being the fifth option on the court, I think there's a chance he could be like the third or fourth option on the court. And I think that he went a long way toward like showing that in the playoffs. You do have to guard him consistently, but that's more the step for me for him is let's like back this up by going and averaging 15 again next year.
And the thing that would be a little bit worrisome there is where does his defense go if all of a sudden he's the number 2 option on the offensive end, right? Like, do you get the same level of defender? Because that's a huge role to take on. And like, that's the reason I brought this up is before people just ship Julius out or like think we're crazy for maybe paying him the numbers we said earlier. I don't think people want to see Minnesota without an actual number 2 option. Like that team will not look the same. That's all I'm telling you. Like, think what you want about Julius Randle. I'm not saying he's the best number 2 option in the NBA or anything like that. But like, I've watched teams without a number 2 option and it's hard. It's a lot on like, you think Anthony Edwards has to work now? Give him, a number 3 option parading as a number 2 and a number 4 as a number 3, and things are going to get even more difficult. Now, if you think Nas can be that guy, then I'll listen to that. But I'm just saying, like, you can't, if you want to continue to compete, you can't go into next year without feeling very strongly that you have the number 2 option.
Let's kind of talk about some of the young guys now. So Rob Dillingham is a guy that I do think can really get buckets in the NBA offensively. I was not the biggest fan of his pre-draft, but that's also because I hate small players, basically. I love, as a person who is not 6 foot, I love and appreciate all of them, and I would very much like to see them have success. I just think it's very, very difficult to be 6'1", 6'2". I think Rob's in the ballpark of like right in between that number, and 170 pounds, and have success in the NBA in the highest moments in like the most important spots, right? Mike Conley even like is struggling with it right now, and Mike is a real dude. Like Mike is maybe no longer a real dude because he struggles to get places on the court, being like older than me at this point. Like he's Mark's age. So he's 37, I believe. So like, it seems difficult for Mike to be like counted on at a super high level at this point. So I kind of think they need Rob, but I don't know that I've seen enough from Rob to believe that he's going to have any chance defensively in a playoff series.
Yeah.
I think he can provide real minutes on an NBA court offensively in the regular season. Like, I think he can be a valuable dude there. Maybe it's as a 6th man, maybe it's as a starter. Like, we'll see where the ceiling ends up. I'm curious about that, just like everybody else is. He is tremendously skilled. I just don't think these guys scale to the playoffs, is my worry.
I mean, we've talked about it throughout the entire playoffs with the best teams and the best coaches and what they do in terms of intentionality and attacking certain players. And Rob is dynamic offensively, but he will have to figure out, like, Jalen Brunson is bigger than him, right? Like, you just look like out on the court, you can just, and he got hunted relentlessly the entire playoffs. And the other thing this does is it does change how you defend things, because you're not going to want to just switch with Rob, right? So when they bring him into the action, he has, I call it the Steph Curry hard hedge, just because I think Steph does it about as good as anybody, but he's going to have to hard hedge, and then now teams can attack that a certain way. Like, it does change the equation whenever you have a smaller defender on there. Now, there's ways to mitigate that. Can he be super aggressive with digs? Brunson takes charges and provides value that way. Like, Conley is a guy that I thought like gave such great effort that he finds ways to try, be impactful on the defensive end. So Rob has Conley and hopefully watched him this entire year in ways to mitigate some of those things. But it absolutely is a real thing and a real conversation come playoffs.
Yeah, what worries me is that the guys that take charges at this size, right? Like Jalen Brunson, Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet will take charges, right? They're huge. They're just enormous human beings, right?
They're massive. Yes.
They're so thick. They're so strong, right? I don't know how much I want Rob Dillingham taking that contact. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Fair enough. Even pods is big. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's true. I guess my point with the charge thing was you can find ways to be impactful, right? You just have to find your thing on the defensive end in terms of, are you a pick up full court guy? Are you a dig guy? Are you a pull the chair guy? Jose Alvarado has figured out his niche, but not everybody can do that, right? So all of these smaller guards are different in the way they have to do it, but part of that is then your team has to buy into that. Your teammates probably have to adjust how they're doing things defensively. And because of all of that, you better be getting buckets on the offensive end, or there's just no reason to have to do it or deal with it on the defensive end.
Speaking of defense, though, can I give what I think might be a bit of a hot take?
Let's hear it. Is it about Jalen Clark? I hope it's about Jalen Clark.
It is.
Yes.
I think he is. So I think everyone thinks that Nickeil Alexander-Walker, they have replacements on the bench, Terrence Shannon can step up. I think it's Jalen Clark. I think that's the guy who's ready to come in and be an awesome basketball player. Every time Jalen Clark took the court this year, I was that's a guy. That's a guy. That's a real player to me. And I like Terrence Shannon looked good in spurts. I don't know if he has any idea what he's doing on defense. He really struggled on that end in the Oklahoma City series, particularly, but he had real moments of spurt ability on offense. His ability to get out and transition is valuable. He's a real running mate for Anthony Edwards and the point guards. I think Terrence Shannon's definitely an NBA player. I think Jalen Clark is the kind of guy that you win with in the NBA.
I don't disagree. I mean, my first maybe they are going to just let Na walk was watching Jalen Clark minutes this year. And people know Na is one of my favorite players in the league to go along with the Tamani Kamaras and the Aaron Nesmiths and all of that. But money matters. Cap situations matter. And when you watch Jalen Clark come in and defend the way he defended and play the way he played, it's okay, if I'm Minnesota and it's going to take whatever to keep Na and I got to make these other decisions, I think I'm just willing to bet on Jalen Clark being a player. And I'm with you on Terrence Shannon Jr. I think Terrence Shannon Jr. is an NBA player. I think Terrence Shannon Jr. is okay, we were going to play you. That was good. That was good. That was good. Oh, he made a mistake. Let's get him out. It's one of those where it's it's a little bit of the Benedict Mathurin in the playoffs as well, where it was okay, 3 really good minutes, got some buckets, forced a turnover. Oh, there was a really bad shot. Another one's coming. We better get him out. There's nothing wrong with that. You can make a long NBA career playing 4 minutes at a time that equate to 16 minutes to 18 minutes a game. But I'm with you. Jalen Clark is really, really interesting, Sam.
I'm just going to pull up the draft guide. Jalen Clark, I said you could put him on an NBA court right now after about a month of adjusting to his team's schemes defensively, and he'd be able to impact the game. He has a very strong case as the best perimeter defender in this draft class, and he's one of the better ones I've evaluated in the last few draft cycles. But the offense is a real worry outside of him running in transition. His jumper's current state, I'm worried teams just wouldn't have to guard him when he's spacing the court. So the whole thing I said was, do you have a plan to help him get better as a jump shooter? If you do, he's worth taking in the top 40. If you don't, he's a two-way grade. Really, the reason that I didn't have a top, I think I had Jalen at 50 or so, right in that ballpark. It was the injury. If Jalen Clark wasn't seriously hurt coming into his rookie year, I would have absolutely had him as a late first round guy, because I had Jamal Shed as a late first round guy. This year I have other, defense first prospects that are older as late first round guys, right? These are the market inefficiencies in the NBA right now, are these older defense first guys. Jalen Clark was coming into the NBA with a serious injury, and I was very concerned that it would have sapped his athleticism. But I freaking love Jalen Clark. Like, that guy is a dude. He makes good decisions. He processes the game at a super fast level, and he's able to play fast while processing the game. That's kind of the difference for me with him and Shannon. Jalen Clark processes things quickly and makes good decisions at speed. Terrence is still figuring that out, right? And I hope that it comes for Terrence, because his physicality, like, and his explosiveness athletically gives him a higher ceiling than Jalen if it all comes together. But man, I think Jalen's the reason that I'm good letting Nikhil walk. Honestly, he is.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's an important part of the equation is, and that's what I said at the top. When you ask me, you said, what do rank these players, right? 1, 2, 3. Yep. And, I had Na third fairly easily, and it wasn't based on contributing to winning or defense or whatever, because I think Na is really good. Like, I think he defends, I think he knocks down shots, and I think he can do a little bit with the ball in his hands as a secondary, second side guy. But they just have so many names that they've invested in some capacity, varying degrees of capacity, but at that, to replace him in some way that they just don't with the other two names. Like, I just believe that Dillingham, Terrence Shannon Jr., Jalen Clark, and you have Dante already, is going to be able to replace that more. I believe in those guys more than I do the combination of Leonard Miller, Luka Garza, whatever, to replace Naz Reid or Julius Randle, I guess.
Speaking of which, they have 17 and 31.
Yep.
If they want to use those two. I think that if I'm them, I'm definitely using those picks, because this is a team that doesn't have a ton of draft capital moving forward necessarily. They just are in a tricky spot because they traded for Rudy. They've done a good job of like trying to accumulate it here and there, but like getting the pick back for Karl Towns was really smart. But they gave up a pick in 2030 for Rob Dillingham, right? So if I'm them, I want to use these picks and like try and replenish with young talent. One thing I will say is, like, if Danny Wolf is on the board,
I was going there.
Like,
perfect.
It's a really good fit to be able to replace one of these guys. And look, Danny Wolf isn't going to be amazing from the jump. He's certainly not going to be Julius Randle. He's not going to be Naz Reid from the jump. But from a skill set perspective, in terms of what he brings, like, the comp that I have in the draft guide is literally Naz Reid.
I mean, he would sell a lot of shirts in Minnesota as well. Like, this is perfect. The Timberwolves with Danny Wolf.
That's fucking, see, like, my brain was more excited about the basketball, but the Wolfman being, just bringing it like that would be amazing.
I mean, like, I suck at this stuff, and I even put that one together. Like, the Minnesota whatever department does that. I don't even know what it's called.
Marketing, yeah,
that's a name. Like, they would just be like, this is easy money for them drafting Danny Wolf.
It really is. It really, really is. I like Wolf for them if he's there at 17, but also, like, some of these guards would be really useful. Like, if Walter Clayton's there, if Nick Clifford is there, if like Will Riley's kind of interesting to them for me, honestly, is like a high upside, hey, some size on the wing, go get that guy. Like, there are some real, like, Jan Berenjay is interesting to me, is like, hey, let's get our like Rudy long-term like center option.
So that's what I was going to say. What about some of the other big, like, let's say Danny's off the board, Commons off the board, obviously. Like, do you like Sorber's fit there? Asa Newell is one that I kind of think is interesting. This would be a little bit higher than I have Asa, but
I have a lower grade on Asa.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, but like, if Rasheer is another one, like, I think we both have we have those guys a little bit lower. So, like, is this, because this is the part of the draft where I think those bigs are probably going to be gone, like the Danny Wolf, the Common Malawatch, like maybe even Sorber's gone. Do you just say, like, hey, we need, like, do you go early on Newell or Fleming, or
no? Because I have 31, and I would assume that one of those guys has a chance to be there,
along with some other really fun names at 31 as well.
31, like, people talk about the depth of this class like being demolished, and they're right. Like, it is really demolished. I want to say this before you say yours, because I told somebody the other day 40. How or 40 or 45 is like my breaking point, where I'm like,
these names aren't quite as interesting anymore.
Where did I end up? Let's see here. My number of pick where I'm like, okay, this is getting questionable is probably about 33, 34.
Okay.
For me. Like right in that ballpark.
Yep.
That's where I start to get into like hey, like I kind of like John Tonje, like let's take a flyer on him, but like it might be a two-way. You know what I mean?
No, it's funny. My tier break is literally at 34. There's just some names over the next 10 names that I'm like, that guy's kind of fun still, but so we're in the same ballpark in terms of like the second half of the second round isn't going to be littered with super exciting names. Really from 40 on, because there'll probably be some surprises that go before what we have on our board here. But okay.
But for the Wolves, though, and their perspective at 31, I think there are guys.
Yes.
Is what I would say.
Yeah.
Like, and look, this is a team, under Tim Connolly, Matt Lloyd, who's a tremendous evaluator, who's their general manager. They do tend to draft younger for the most part. Like, Jalen Clark notwithstanding and Terrence Shannon notwithstanding. You can go through Josh Minot, Leonard Miller, Rob Dillingham, back through, like you can see that they do tend to take the higher upside swings for the most part. I'll be interested to see how they look at this, to be honest with you. I'll be very interested to see what they do.
That will be interesting because like the bigs in that range are all older players, right? Maxime Renaud, Janai Broom, Ryan Cockbrenner. But the guard wing players are a little bit younger. And so it will be interesting to see where they'd go at 31. But I'm with you. I think the first 5-ish picks in the second round are probably going to be fun names still that teams can get excited about.
Look, we didn't even talk about Leonard. We didn't even talk about Minot here, but like, look, they can keep those guys. They have options on those guys if they want to. Interesting players. I would keep both of them. They're somewhat interesting to me. Like they could become something.
Yep.
Okay. Final roundup. I think where I'm at after talking all of this through, I think where I'm at is I would keep Randall and Reed.
Yep.
I would need to get like a serious offer in a sign and trade. And look, like Reed is an unrestricted free agent. If he wants to go, like he can go. Mm-hmm. Randall's an unrestricted free agent. If he wants to go, he can go. I think it's going to be a little bit harder for Randall because Randall's number is probably a little bit bigger than Naz Reed's number in terms of salary. And there just isn't a lot of salary out there to be able to make it work from a match perspective. Reed's number is a little bit more workable and actually might make him a little bit more available to a wider number of teams. And if he just wants to go, he wants to go, right? But if I'm Minnesota, I probably want to keep both of those players. I think I'm good letting Nickeil walk. I think I'm like comfortable with what they have off the bench right now to be able to replace him and not pay him like a significant dollar figure, much as I like Nickeil and think he is like a really valuable player that can help you win games. But if I do lose one of Randall or Reed because they decide to depart, I am very comfortable paying Nickeil Alexander-Walker like $15 million a year, $14 million a year, and giving him like the non-taxpayer mid-level. Like that sounds totally fine to me, to be honest.
I think I'm with you.
That feels like the plan of attack to me.
Yes, I think I agree with all of that, where I want to make sure I continue to I love Nah, but I think I agree based on all the stuff we outlined. I think I also agree in terms of like, I don't know that I would shop Nas, but like I would listen to like good offers on a side and trade because I could see him having, I could see you getting an offer or two that was like real, like, hey, we
kind of have to look at this. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hard pressed not to think that he's not going to have a couple suitors out there that would put something legit on the table for them to consider. And if you don't like it, then you just keep him and you run it back with these young guys. And again, you just played in the Western Conference Finals after you made a trade right before the season and, incorporated those guys. Two of those guys.
I feel okay running this back. This is where I'm at with Minnesota.
Yep.
I feel reasonably okay about running it back. Okay. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, Blue Sky, the Substack I have. By the time you guys are listening to this, at least 3 second round into first, top of second prospect breakdowns. It's a little Piston centric, but you still get an overview of the player. So Adu Thiero, Maxime Renault, Ryan Cockbrenner, you can go check those out. They're 10-minute video breakdowns of prospects. More to come on the Substack. It's completely free. You just subscribe. You never pay. You never will. The Pistons Pulse podcast, otherwise, right here with Game Theory podcast with the Sam Vecenie. Thank you guys so much. Like, the offseason previews have gotten so much positive feedback. And as a words of affirmation love language person, I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So we really, really appreciate it immensely that you guys have enjoyed these in the way that you have. We've obviously been putting out one per day here, and, you know, we kind of record these in rounds, right? That's not really a surprise. So the first rounds that we recorded are starting to catch up to where they're going live, and we really, really appreciate you guys hanging out, enjoying these. Like, the number of people that have told us that, you know, I'm not even a fan of this team, and I just really enjoy listening to trying to figure out what their off season is going to be. Like, it really means the world to us. We really thank you for that and coming through and being able to, you know, have the conversations with us about all of it. Thank you for all the new people that have come through. Like we said, 40,000 subscribers. We're so appreciative of you guys being willing to hang out with us and have a good time and talk basketball with us. We will be back tomorrow with the New York Knicks, where we're going to do the 2 conference finalists here that have been eliminated. So we've talked a little bit about the Knicks on the show already, but we're going to go to the Knicks a little bit more in depth now. With their actual cap situation and everything, and talk through their options. That's all we've got. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.